What the Fertility podcast. It's Amanda and Catherine, and today we have joining us Ashlee Manos, owner of Maha Holistic Wellness. We're so excited to have you here, Ashlee.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So we will dive a little bit deeper into the benefits of acupuncture and Chinese medicine as it pertains to women's fertility and on their path to motherhood. How did you get into the healing arts, and how did you start into holistic medicine?
Oh, where do I begin? I'll try to sum this up, but from an early age, I specifically remember helping my cousin who lived next door with her migraines. And I just would go and massage her head and neck. And I mean, I was young, but it was just always what would relieve her headache. So I feel like from that, it sort of sparked the interest of, oh, I can help other people. And, I guess naturally it's just like, part of my personality. And so I went to massage school when I was 19 and 20, and then sort of let that guide me into all the other things that I've done. So started doing yoga and yoga teacher trainings. And then after years of doing both of those, decided to, just from my own healing experience with acupuncture, decided that would be the route for me to go. And just, kind of let one thing lead to the other. And it, of course, started with my own personal journey through being more sick as a child. And then as I changed lifestyle habits and started seeking alternative therapies, my life got extremely better. So
that's awesome. So I have been a client of Ashlee's for, a year and a half. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
A year and a half, almost every week. I'm curious because I actually don't know this about you. What made you, and maybe you're not specifically in the fertility space, but what made you kind of shift from the general acupuncture practice and then get that knowledge to give to clients coming to you saying, I'm having issues conceiving, or in my situation, with reoccurrent loss, or even just, hey, I'm going to start IUIs or IVF, and I know acupuncture could be a benefit.
Yeah. So it's actually part of what I was seeking help with in my 20s when I started seeing an acupuncturist. I was living out in California, and she helped me so much with just regulating my menstrual cycles and the pain that I was experiencing, and just, many other things. And so that was my sort of first introduction to women's health within the acupuncture realm. And then just my own personal interest of, for years wanting to become a mom myself. And, life has now brought me to finally being a mother at 38. I had him when I was 35, but, it was something that I wanted early on, so that yearning for a child, even though I didn't struggle with the fertility part, more so with the person that I was with didn't want a child at the time. And so, it's just, I think all of those personal experiences had created a special place in my heart for wanting to help women through this process of the journey to becoming a mom and what all goes into it. And then the more that I've worked with women, the more it has just become a great passion of mine to work through all aspects of it: getting pregnant, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, menopause. I work with many women through menopause as well. So the whole gamut of the women's health.
Yeah, I love that. And I know Catherine obviously is a client of yours, but I too have gone through acupuncture through my whole process of trying to conceive and everything as well. So we know how beneficial it can be. So we really appreciate that. If you want to just kind of jump right into kind of speaking just like of the benefits and just like benefits of acupuncture, Chinese medicine, kind of, I know you offer so many different services, but just surrounding fertility, if you want to kind of talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I think I'll start by just talking about the benefits of acupuncture for fertility specifically, like you asked, and then we can maybe dive into a little bit more of an overview of Chinese medicine. I think it will help to give the listeners a little bit of a background just so that they have more of an understanding. But the first and foremost benefit is that it provides a better blood flow to the ovaries and uterus, which is, will help create a stronger chance for the egg to be nourished and carried to term. So it also regulates the menses, it balances the endocrine system, specifically the hypothalamic, pituitary, and ovarian axis. So there's a lot of different hormone imbalances that can happen in a woman's body, and some of them can prevent ovulation altogether and implantation. So the hormonal imbalance is a major part of something that acupuncture can help with and support. And then it reduces stress and creates deeper relaxation. And I sort of laugh around that because it's, one thing that acupuncture is really known to do is to help you to relax and reduce stress. But I just want to take a moment to talk about how important that part is. High levels of stress in the body and cortisol levels being really high completely alter the brain's neurochemical balance, which can also disrupt the hormonal balance. And it can also, stress can create us to not ovulate. It creates, we'll talk about this a little bit later when we talk about specific Chinese medicine diagnoses, but we call it stress basically is liver qi stagnation. And when our liver qi is stagnant, then we can't create a smooth flow of blood and qi throughout the whole body, which is needed for just everything that happens in the body. So reducing stress is a major one. It also enhances the ARTS procedures, so the IUI and the IVF. There's lots of studies that are being done more so recently, which is awesome. And just, proving that it is really helpful in enhancing those therapies.
Yeah, I want to jump in and talk about the stress piece because, and I really want to get into this question, but we'll do it later about, when during your cycle should you come and what are the different types of treatments you do during the cycle. But I know for me, having been with you for a year and a half, there were certain times when I would come in and be like, look, I'm not trying this month, or we're recovering from a loss. And, you really just said to me yeah, but it's an hour of stress relief. And I could not relate to that more. And that's what I share with a lot of women of, when should I go? Or we're not trying for a couple more months, and that stress piece of it. And I would love for you to get into, I'll let you finish what you were saying, but even get into kind of what an initial treatment looks like. Obviously, you're going to speak from your perspective for a first client, but I would imagine that most acupuncturists that are working with fertility clients do have a similar approach.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a big component that brings me to the next benefit, and that is supporting women emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, of course, but there's the emotional piece is such a huge part of this process. It can be such an emotional roller coaster each month, the hope, and then the wait, and then the letdown, or the excitement, and then the letdown. It's just, there's just so much emotional drainage that can happen, so it's such a big piece. And acupuncture, is a very holistic approach to the body. So it's not just working at the physical level, but it's, mental, emotional, all of the above. So it can be really supportive in that. And yeah, so I don't know if you want to jump in right now.
Yeah, why not, right?
Okay,
Because that was, and I'll be biased again. Amanda's never met Ashlee, but one of the reasons I stuck with Ashlee from the very beginning was I went in, and I'll let her tell you the process, but I went in and I left thinking like, wow, I just found a therapist, an hour of like a sleep chamber, and this is helping my hormones. And me personally, I had lab results show how much it balanced my hormones. So that was like a pretty telltale sign of like, I need to keep going. But all right, I will let you tell everyone your normal process for like a first visit.
No, I love hearing that. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. I'm glad you felt that way. So the first initial treatment is really important because it's really helpful to know the woman's entire health history. And not only like what she thinks her health history is or what tests have shown, but I ask a lot of questions that may seem super irrelevant. And it's just because in the Chinese medicine paradigm, we are looking at the system, the whole system. And the main thing in Chinese medicine is we're trying to bring the body into balance. As close to balance as we can. And that is what provides us with optimal health. And in that, the state of our natural fertility is part of that optimal health. And so, in addition to what the woman brings in with, any lab work or health history, I go through and we talk extensively on their menstrual cycles, what it looks like. Is there pain involved? Is there clots? The length? Is it regular? Have you been on birth control? If so, how long? There's so many parts of that plays such a big role into just how I approach the woman from the beginning and the treatment plan. And it is so different for each person. We can't definitely, because it's pretty fascinating, talk about like each phase of the menstrual cycle and sort of how we approach it from a Chinese medicine perspective. But in that, we definitely, it's one of the most beautiful parts of Chinese medicine is we really take each individual and what their specific body and their imbalances are to help bring that into balance, which will then restore the whole body's balance. Which is why it's so helpful. So so after we go through the full health history intake, I'll feel the pulse and look at the tongue. Wasn't looking at the tongue so much during COVID, but starting to integrate that again. But that just can kind of help confirm some of the signs and symptoms that the woman is having. So even as, breaking it down to like day-to-day, lifestyle, like, are you sleeping at night? How's your digestive system? All of that plays into a big component of what organ systems and what meridians are working optimally.
I think that's so important for people that maybe have never gone to acupuncture before, where they're thinking, I'm just going to come in, lay on a table and get like needles stuck in me. Just how much time you take at the beginning to really personalize the treatment. And I think Amanda, I don't know if you want to go into kind of, I guess my personal next question, and I think that's where you were going, was if I were to come in and I was like day 6 of my cycle, what would the treatment look like compared to maybe if I came in and I was like day 16 and I had just ovulated? Because I know you're very specific during the actual 28-day cycle.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe, do you mind if I take a minute to just like talk about each phase of the cycle, just in case like some listeners don't know what's actually happening? Because it's such a big, important process. And I think, I talk to this with so many women about how it's like, this is our bodies, and why are we not taught these things from such a young age of like just how the body works and how our menstrual cycles flow and what's actually happening in the body. And I think it can be helpful in connecting with the whole process to know sort of that it's very normal for us to feel different during different parts of the month. We're not crazy when we're having a little bit of an emotional upset right before we start our cycle. There's reasons for that, it can, so anyway, so the follicular phase, so the first half of the cycle from cycle day 1, which is the first day that you're bleeding, is cycle day 1 until right before ovulation. It's called the follicular phase. And this is when estrogen is increasing and it starts to stimulate the thickening of the endometrium and the lining of the uterus. And the way that we view that in Chinese medicine is estrogen is equal to blood and yin. And I probably should have talked about yin and yang first, but we can kind of backtrack if we need to. But so in that time, it's a really important time to help the body do what it's already naturally trying to do, right? So really nourish the yin and the blood. And then strengthen the heart, blood, and the kidney essence. And I'll make sense of all that soon. But so right before the ovulation, so that whole follicular phase, we are supporting the yin, basically. And then during the ovulation phase, this is when the estrogen peaks, and then it triggers that surge of LH. And within that surge, that is right after that, that is when you ovulate within 24 hours, sometimes 48, usually within 24 hours. And the egg is released. And so during that time, there's a whole different system that's happening as far as from the traditional Chinese medicine perspective. The heart circulates the blood to the liver, and that flow of liver throughout the whole body is the qi and the blood is really important to create the ovulation. And so during that time, I'm really helping to regulate the liver qi and support the liver blood. And so it's, very different during each phase. And then during implantation, if a woman's trying to get pregnant, then during implantation, we're supporting the kidney yin and yang. So it's a little bit of a different time around that time. And then the luteal phase is after ovulation until a positive pregnancy test or the period starts. And that lasts approximately 14 days. So this is when the estrogen declines and the progesterone levels increase. And when the progesterone levels peak around 1 week after the ovulation is when implantation can occur. And this whole phase from a Chinese medicine perspective is the yang phase. So the first half is the yin, the second half is the yang. So in the second half, I'm more interested in the kidney yang, the qi, the flow of qi throughout the body, and supporting the woman through that natural process.
Can I ask a question I feel like everybody is curious about right now?
Sure.
What would you suggest? And I know your suggestion is come during both, but if you could only come, say, twice a month in the yin or the yang, is it better to come week 3 and 4 of your cycle or mix it up? Or what is your opinion on that?
Yeah. Well, if it's possible to come every single week, that is absolutely the best case scenario, because we are definitely working through different phases the entire month. It could also be dependent on what specifically that woman has going on for them. Like if they, have blood deficiency versus kidney yang deficiency. And so I can't say across the board what would be best, but if I did want to say across the board, then I think it would be, if you could only come once a month, it would be right before ovulation, would be the most ideal time. And that is to just really encourage the growth of the follicles and the preparation of what all is about to happen. Yeah. So, and then if you want it to come 2 times, then definitely before ovulation, and then, maybe right again around implantation.
That's what I feel like that's what I did occasionally, because it's a big commitment, and it's financial and
money.
time. Yeah. So thanks for answering that question. I think that's like one of the first things people ask me. They're like, it's so expensive, especially with the finances. If you're pursuing fertility treatment, if I can only go twice a month, when would it be? So I think that probably answered a lot of people's questions.
Yeah. Good.
All right. So what's next? What else? I don't want to throw you off some of the things that you wanted to speak about, because you obviously know way more information than Amanda and I even know to ask. So is there anything that you want to?
So maybe maybe we can just talk a little bit about like just an overview of acupuncture and the theory of Chinese medicine, so that people can understand a little bit more about how and why this works. And I also just want to throw in, before I forget, that this kind of goes along with how often should I come? And I often get the question, like, how long should I give this? Like, before I can like give up on it, basically. And, because we are working at the blood level. So in fertility, we are most interested in the quality of a woman's blood and the yin organs. And so to change the quality of a woman's blood, it really takes a good 3 months to really, truly create some major change there. And of course, one treatment can bring blood flow to the uterus. And, I know there are plenty of women who are like, don't know much about it, which is fine. A lot of us don't know anything about this. It's not something we were brought up with in our culture. I love that it's becoming such a big thing now. But a lot of women, just hear, oh, acupuncture is great to help with IVF. And so I'm going to go do it the week of. And that's great. It will absolutely increase your chances if you go one time. However, if you go consistently for 1 to 3 months, ideally, before, it is increasing the chances that much more. It's, giving us a chance to really bring the body into its natural state of optimal health, as well as really preparing the womb, the uterus, and supporting the yin and blood in the most official way. So I just kind of wanted to throw that in there too. So overall, acupuncture is based on the philosophy of the Tao and the ancient philosophy of the Tao. And that looks at the rhythms of the natural universe. And the main thing that you'll hear us talk a lot about is the yin and the yang, and the balance between the two. And that idea is, what we all have heard and we know about, this idea of opposites, and you can't have one without the other: day, night, dark, light, feminine, masculine, all of the opposites. And within the body, that looks like, so yin, we can think about it in terms of like water and fire, right? So like yin can be related to water in that it is the more dense, slow, yielding, dark, deep, just the darker side of that. And then yang can be related to fire in that it's quick and bright and can be destructive and can, just be really, like on fire. And so in the body, that looks like the chi, or the energy that circulates the body, that animates us, that is in everything that's living. The chi is the yang, and in relation to that, the yin of the body is the blood and the fluids. So, we can every relationship has a yin and the yang, and it's only there because of the other. So if we're talking about hormones, estrogen is yin and the testosterone and progesterone is yang, which is why, the first half of the cycle is related to the yin and the blood and the fluids and supporting that. And the second half is related to the yang and the chi in the body. And then, I won't spend too much time talking about all this because it's just like, obviously, I was in school for 4 years and I still feel like I have so much to learn. But I just want to talk a little bit more so people get an idea of how it's so helpful for creating an overall balance in the body. And so the different organ systems and meridians in the body, there are pairs of organs. Then each pair has a yin and the yang organ pair, and then there's this 5 element cycle, and everything that governs our health in our day-to-day life, sleep, bowel movements, urination. Everything is governed by these different organ systems and these meridians, and they all have specific ways that they play a role. And so, for instance, if the spleen and the stomach, or the earth element, is what produces, from a Chinese medicine perspective, the spleen and the stomach produces blood, postnatal chi and blood in the body. So after we have a cycle, the earth element, the spleen and stomach, is what's working really hard at producing blood. And then the blood is then circulated by the heart. The heart kind of takes it over to the liver, and the liver stores it, and the liver is the one that distributes the blood throughout the body, creates that smooth flow throughout the whole body. And then it's turned into what we call kidney essence. And that the kidneys are such a major role in Chinese medicine because it is what stores our jing, or essence, and that is what governs all reproductive processes. So, the spleen. So, for an overview for fertility, the major organ systems that we're dealing with is the spleen, the liver, and the kidneys, and the heart has a big component too.
So as somebody that's done acupuncture, I'm listening to you speak and I'm in my mind seeing, I know where the needles have gone. One of the questions we got on Instagram was from somebody that's never done acupuncture, and they were like, where did the needles go? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a legitimate question. I mean, Amanda and I have been so many times, so we don't really think about it. And you've probably put in tens of thousands of needles, but I'm listening to you talk, and then I'm going through my own experience and saying, gosh, I know that when I come in on this week, she focuses on my liver versus like the stomach. Could you maybe just speak about on like just an overview of like how many needles you use and where on the body you place them for women specifically coming to you for fertility?
Yeah.
And saying, that they don't hurt. I know that was another thing. So many people are so nervous that they really hurt, and they don't at all. So just
thanks for that piece too. So many people come in so anxious, and then after the first needle goes in, they're like, oh, that's it? Oh, okay, I'm fine.
Exactly.
So it's like, yes. It's nothing like a hypodermic needle at the hospital that draws blood. It is nothing like that. They're very flexible, tiny little stainless steel needles that, you may feel like a pinch or a little mosquito bite, goes away very quickly. And some of them you don't feel at all. So again, different practitioners treat differently. There's more than the beauty of acupuncture and Chinese medicine too is there's more than one way to treat a spleen qi deficiency or a liver qi stagnation. And, you can use local points, you can use distal points. There's a lot of different ways you can treat. For me personally, I depend. So the distal points on the hands and the feet are really powerful. And I always will incorporate like some points on the liver, spleen, kidney. I mean, not always all of this, but, depending on what's going on. But the liver, spleen, and kidney all have points on the feet. For instance, spleen 6, we'll just take that point. It's about a hand width up from the inner ankle bone on the lower leg. And that is where the 3 yin channels, there's an intersection there. So if you think of a busy highway, it's a really big energetic point to support the yin of 3 of the yin channels. So it's like a heavy hitter.
That's the one that always hurts the most for me too.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, why is this so painful compared to when I get it in my head? But this is the worst one.
Yeah. And so the achiness that may come with some of the points is, I always say that as long as you can tolerate it and it's comfortable enough to relax, that the achiness really is a good thing. That is the qi letting us know that it's working and it's being activated. And the spleen and stomach specifically create more of that like achy sensation, whereas some of the other channels can create different sensations. So they all kind of create different sensations. Some might feel itching, or some might feel like a heaviness, and they all feel different. But I really love when I hear someone say that their spleen 6 is really achy or their stomach 36 is really achy. I'm like, yes, okay, as long as you can handle that, we're good.
All the time.
Yeah. And then, there are there's points locally right over the uterus and the ovaries that I use a lot. So it, allows us to use these channels, the liver and the spleen and the kidneys, to support the yin and create a good flow of movement of the qi and blood along those meridians. And then to encourage bringing it to the uterus and the ovaries, I will place needles along that. So the kidneys go right through there. The kidney channel goes right through there. The stomach and spleen channels go right through there. So I use points along those channels still right on the lower abdomen. And then, so those are all part of the primary channels. And there's another system that is called the 8 extraordinary vessels. And I will just touch on that a brief moment because it's such a big part of fertility. So the Ren, the Du, and the Chong, and that is so the Chong Mai is a big channel system that I use a lot for fertility, and it is called the SEA, sea of blood. And because it originates in the kidneys and the uterus, and it brings blood to the uterus, and it supports so much for fertility, it governs reproductive organs. So I'll use that a lot. And then the Ren Mai is the sea of yin, and the Du Mai is the sea of yang. So the 3 together are channels that store our deep reservoirs. So it's our deep, our deep resources. And it is a really beautiful way to work with fertility because it utilizes the kidneys and the spleen channels as well. So I know I'm kind of like going way off into this like concept, but it's one way I really love, working with that. So all of that to say that there are needles really everywhere on the body. So on the feet, on the hands, definitely on the lower abdomen. And then, there's may sometimes be on the chest, depending if there's a heart component, there usually is. The heart usually deals with like our emotional being. And And then yin tong, my favorite, one of my favorites, which is at the third eye, the point in between the eyebrows. It stimulates the pituitary gland. So a lot of the hormones that are used for the reproductive system and it helps calm the spirit. It helps, it's really, really helpful for balancing out the hormones as well. So yeah, all over the body.
No, that's great. And for someone who is just starting, just like fertility treatments or thinking about coming for acupuncture, I know you mentioned quite a bit, and I know this is really important, is the blood flow to the uterus. Can you just quickly just kind of say why that's so important and like what that role is as trying to conceive as well?
Yeah. So, such a good question. The quality of the blood is such an important part of our menstrual cycle, right? So it's why I ask women so much about the quality of the blood during their actual menstrual cycle, because if it is, say you have really severe cramps and clotting and a really heavy flow, or even the opposite, like a lack of flow, it could be due to blood stagnation. And again, these are all Chinese medicine terms, and we can definitely make parallels with Western medicine, but we can't really like do exact correlations with Western medicine. So all this, to the first listener about Chinese medicine might sound like wild, but blood stagnation is one major reason for infertility from a Chinese medicine perspective. And so creating a better flow of blood is going to help move out that blood stagnation. So that's like one reason the blood flow to the uterus is so important. And then just it is exactly what's happening, with our cycle. The blood is being produced, the lining of the uterus is thickening, it's what we release. And so the better the quality of blood, so you can think about it like this, so heat is really helpful on the lower abdomen before implantation, by the way. You don't want to put a lot of heat on the belly if implantation has occurred already. But before ovulation, heat is a natural way to increase blood flow. And so a lot of times I will use a heat lamp over the points on the belly to just even more so encourage that blood flow. And however, if you leave heat on a particular part of the body for too long, it can coagulate the blood. So, that's why, 20 minutes is a great amount of time, 20 to 25 minutes for heat, and then at least take a 20-minute break before you were to apply heat again. But all of that to say that the quality of the blood is changing all the time. And the more we can support just a really beautiful, red, rich quality of blood that has no clots, no stagnation in it, the better the overall implantation process will be, the better the quality of the actual uterus for the embryo to survive. It's just a big part of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know for me, I was always told a warm uterus is like a best uterus. So I know like lifestyle changes, diet changes, all of that also plays a big role in it as well, in addition to acupuncture and Chinese medicine too. So do you have any recommendations or suggestions as far as lifestyle or diet?
Yeah. So, in supporting the yin, it's really important to, of course, exercise so that you can get that blood flow and qi moving throughout the body. but also rest is really important, and a good amount of sleep, at least 8 hours, is really important for nourishing the yin. And I keep talking of the yin because those are the organ systems that play the biggest role in getting pregnant. And so everything we can do to support and nourish the yin. So rest. And then foods, healthy fats are really important. So, fish oils, coconut oil, eggs, avocado, nuts and seeds, whether you eat meat and dairy, depending on your preferences and your body's tolerances. Of course, organic and grass-fed is recommended. But those can also be really supportive of building blood. So on that piece, like some food that help nourish the blood, in addition to, meat and healthy fats, are leafy greens, and cruciferous vegetables are really great. So the broccolis and cauliflowers and Brussels sprouts. And then beets are really helpful, and carrots to help nourish the blood. And then as fruits, there's grapes and berries and dates are really helpful, figs. And then I'm just like throwing.
I was going to say, I said you better give everybody the recommendation to eat a bunch of soups, because that's what you did for me. And I would text Ashlee pictures. I'm such a smoothie and salad person. I just like that kind of stuff. And I would tell Ashlee what I'd eat, and she's like, that's not the best. You need to be doing like warm foods during certain parts of your cycle. So I would be like sitting in my car eating soup, and it was like 98 degrees out.
Yes, I love it.
But can you speak to that?
Yeah, for sure. So that is because the spleen chi. So, especially for ones who the spleen chi is more deficient, the spleen relates to the metabolism and the digestion, energy levels. Again, it's what produces the blood. So when our spleen is taxed, which eating cold, raw foods create the spleen to work a little bit harder to digest it. So it's taxing the spleen more than if we were just eating warm, cooked, nourishing soups and stews and vegetables. So during a time when we're really wanting to support the spleen and the function of the spleen so that it can like produce blood for us and hold a pregnancy and, do all of these things, it's like, let's take one part of it out that taxes it. And especially even more so in fall and winter. So yeah, that's why I was like, eat all the warm, nourishing foods you can versus cold, raw during, and it's just, again, supporting the yin overall.
No, that's great. And that was something that I learned because, a lot of women that are trying to conceive think they're eating they think they're eating healthy, and maybe that's what they did years before they were trying to have a baby. And then you learn that you might be eating healthy, but not necessarily the best to support pregnancy.
The yin and the pregnancy. And yeah. And, this is like a whole nother topic. I probably shouldn't even bring it up, but I'm just going to throw it out there that, eating, bone broths and meat is really, really supportive in nourishing the blood. And, by all means, if that's not your preference, then that's fine. But if it is something that you're open to, I'll just, I don't know how much time we have, but when I was in acupuncture school, most of us started the school being vegetarian or vegan. And by the end of the 4 years, I don't think there was one vegetarian left, because we knew the benefits of, of course, healthy proportions, but yeah, it's really, really, really helpful at supporting the blood and the yin, and which is all of what we're working with fertility.
No, I definitely, I'd like to hear your side, Amanda, too. I definitely went in much more plant-based, like 90% plant-based. And that was maybe like a year and a half ago. And now I like intuitively will say, I want to have like a piece of meat, like once a week or something, that obviously, to your point, organic and coming from a good source. But
Yeah.
I've even just noticed it in my energy levels and all around. But that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
We actually have already been recording for 50 minutes.
Oh, no.
I know. So I don't actually have them in front of me, but Amanda, do you have some of the questions from, so we had a Q&A on the Instagram and we got some really good questions.
Cool.
I know Amanda and I both kind of already threw probably like 3 or 4 in the last 50 minutes. But I'll let Amanda take that over. And I know one of them, Amanda, you should have it, but some listeners were curious about doing acupuncture once you get that positive pregnancy test.
Mm-hmm. I'll start there. So it's absolutely highly recommended to continue with acupuncture during pregnancy, all of pregnancy. Again, similar to the cycle through the pregnancy, there are specific things that are happening. So the first trimester, the spleen and stomach are really important to be nourished, and it's why a lot of times women get sick and nauseous. And the spleen and stomach are in the digestion. It's just a major part of holding and maintaining the pregnancy, and so that's getting taxed a little bit. So acupuncture can be really helpful at helping to maintain the pregnancy, holding, lifting, supporting the spleen, supporting the kidney, as well as helping with the nausea and the lack of sleep, or, as you transitioned into the second trimester, the fire element kicks in, and we usually see things like anxiety and insomnia for some. So acupuncture can be really helpful in that. And then the third trimester, the wood element, so the liver and gallbladder. So it's really helpful at preparing the body for birth and helping with muscle cramps and things like that. So it is absolutely really beneficial to continue with acupuncture. And there's no really side effects, if any, or to none at all of acupuncture. So it's really helpful in just supporting the whole process.
Yeah, definitely. And so our next question, I'm probably going to butcher this completely, so I'm probably saying it completely wrong. So someone asked, can acupuncture help thin lining that's most likely caused by hypothalamic amenorrhea? I think it is. I'm totally probably saying it wrong, so I'm not sure.
No, that's fine. Yeah. Can it help thin the lining?
Yep, they asked if it helped thin the lining, the uterine lining, I guess.
I'm wondering if they're asking if it helps with thin lining, maybe.
I
don't have it in front of me, but they might have tried to type it out.
Yeah.
Because it definitely does the opposite, right?
Yeah, it helps thicken the lining, which is what we want to help create menses. And it absolutely, I feel like I've been rambling, and there's just so much to talk about. But when someone has amenorrhea, there can be quite a few different causes, and a lot of it acupuncture can absolutely help with. So whether it's caused by PCOS or which in Chinese medicine that would be like an accumulation of dampness or cold in the uterus, and so we treat it whatever specifically thing is going on, but it can definitely help with amenorrhea, and it thickens the lining of the uterus.
Okay. If you have any words or advice just to a couple who maybe just got their first diagnosis, or women just got their first diagnosis of infertility, or they've just been struggling to conceive, if you had just a few things just to tell them right off the bat, is there anything you could share with us?
Well, I'll jump straight to, this is something that I really wanted to make sure I touched on anyway, because, like I said in the beginning, it's such an emotional process for women. And we can do all the things. We can do all the things. We can get acupuncture. We can get these treatments. We can balance our hormones with medications. We can, we can do all the things. And then if it's still not happening yet, then it could be just a matter of timing, or it definitely makes me question, one's specific destiny right now in their life. And I think it's, everyone's so different. But I think when we're dealing with creating life, it's hard not to bring up the topic of spirituality and just allowing it to, allowing yourself to connect to, like, okay, yes, do all the things, do your BBT chart, know when you're ovulating, be really, really on top of it, and then figure out a way somehow to trust the process and surrender. And I think that is like what I talk with a lot of the women that I work with through, because, we're in such a fast-paced world right now that we just, like, if we want to get pregnant, we want to get pregnant tomorrow or yesterday, and it's like, these things take so much time, and it is part of the process in surrendering to that. And yeah, I mean, and then, all the specific things, but I feel like that is my most, like, piece of advice.
I have chills. That was by far the best way to end this conversation. I definitely agree with that. And I think that's really, really good advice for anybody that is still waiting to conceive.
Yeah.
So thank you, Ashlee. I appreciate it. This was great.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me.